Do you want to know how to talk to your child about gun violence? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, all through the lens of the principle of self-government. And in this video, we're talking about gun violence. Gun violence can be a very touchy topic to talk about, and I know that children do get worried when they hear about crimes happening, especially if they are not prepared to hear about those things. It is important that we teach our children about weapons and about violence and what the proper use of weapons are. In this video, we're going to be talking about guns and discussing those with our children and how to discuss with our children when an episode of gun violence happens. I used to be afraid of guns. I'm going to admit that when I first got married, I told my husband that he had to get rid of his pellet gun because we were going to have children. I didn't want anything in the house, no guns, nothing. And so I definitely would say I had a relationship with weapons and guns, even though I did shoot archery and I had a compound bow and I would go bow hunting, and I knew that my family had done hunting. I'd never really gotten into guns. I did have a hunter safety, but that was it. But then there was a time when my son, who was about 6 at the time, started going over to a neighbor's house, and the neighbor's father was a taxidermist. And so, of course, he had guns. I mean, he kept them locked up. He was safe and stuff, but he had guns and he had animals around that he was working with all the time. And my son was going over there, and I realized, there could be something laying around, a bullet, a gun, something, who knows? I've got to prepare him for that. And so at that point, I actually asked my father if he could do a gun safety class for my son who was 6. And we taught him what these things were for. And we taught him how to respect them if he ever saw them. Now, as time went by the time he hit about 10, I decided, actually, I want him to know how to use this. I want him to know how to shoot it so that he can properly respect it. If anything were ever to happen, or he was around anything like this, or he ever needed something like this, that he would know what to do. So we went from being completely anti-gun to, I think our children need an education about guns because they're part of the world. And because in our country we have a Second Amendment which gives us the right to own them and to bear arms. And so maybe we ought to, think proactively about that. So talking to your children about guns early is actually a good thing. Teach them to respect the guns, and then later teach them to shoot them in a respectful way. Don't ever make light of shooting the guns. I think that's an important thing too. Some people maybe are a little bit too casual and lighthearted with it, and then that's when accidents happen. So what about those moments when you hear stories of gun violence and people are getting shot at schools or in public places? Those are tragic moments. They're hard to process. It's really important that you go back to that basic information that you've already given your child. If you haven't talked to your child at all about guns and weapons and what their proper uses are, then your child is going to have even a harder time when gun violence occurs. So make sure that you preemptively talk to the child about how guns are used for hunting and for self-defense, and they need to be respected all the time, kept in safe places. We use them in safe environments. Talk about all of those things. Then when an episode occurs and you hear it on the news or it's in your community, you can say to your child, so this person went outside of the uses of guns. They instead started to use this gun instead of in a safe way to protect life, and in a safe way to feed someone by hunting or something, but now they used it in a way to attempt to take life. That has a totally different feeling to it. And I would talk to the child about the feeling. One feels like protection and safety, and the other one feels like worry and fear. And I would definitely let the child know that the majority of people who have guns do not want to be violent with those guns. And I would talk about, the value of a life, how important that is. I would make sure that your child knows that when a person chooses to be violent like that, that's usually a sign that something else is going on inside their head, that they're not okay, that they needed help and somebody didn't know that they needed maybe mental help. Because usually the people who commit gun violence in tragic ways like that, they are dealing with a mental condition. We need to make sure that that's clear. And so helping your children also talk about, hey, when you feel like you're not okay inside, make sure you come and talk to me. That's important. That's important. I had a friend one time who had a gun and was going through a really hard time, a depressing time, a divorce. And this friend said to me, Nicholeen, I right now am at a really, really low place. I know you've got a gun safe. Can you just hold my gun at your house? Because I just need to not have it with me. I said, yes, of course. I'd be happy to. Because that's what friends do. That's what people talk about. If somebody is in that type of a situation, you got to help them out. And that's responsible gun ownership right there. So talk to your children about responsible gun ownership to give them a vision of what it looks like to use guns productively. I don't think it helps for us to make our children afraid of guns. I think we teach them to respect them and teach them how to use them. And then we talk to them about the bad condition that a person might be in if they're violent, and then how to support the people who have survived such a tragedy. And then we move on by helping watch out for each other emotionally. There are a lot of things that we could talk about related to emotions and some of the key lessons that children need to know. Probably a big thing that could help is my next video. It's all about conflict resolution, and maybe this would help them get an idea of how conflicts should be resolved. It's called Family Conflict Resolution. Click on that video next.